Okay. Morning, everybody. I hope you're having a great day so far. If you live in New York, so it's nice and brisk outside. And if you live in Miami, so the weather's much better. But either way, hopefully the light of spirituality is suffusing your life and welling up inside of you. Bezrat Hashem, we should have a beautiful lesson right now. And we're going to continue what we started yesterday, which is very powerful. And that is that the concept of the highest revelation of Hashem, of godliness, is afforded only to those who are most sick. And usually the way that we think about it is the person who is most whole, he would be the person who, so to speak, connects to Hashem at the greatest level. And this is the chidush, that Hashem places aside, so to speak, the greatest revelation of himself for those people who are struggling the most. And this is reflected in the concept of the tzaddik emet, that the genuine tzaddik of the generation, that what makes him above all else the leader of the door is not that he is very learned in Torah, even though he must be. It's not that he has accomplished a lot in terms of his ability to pray with intentionality, with fervor, even though he must be. It's not the fact that he is very humble, even though he must be. But what sets him apart from everybody else is his desire to give over what he has, not to those people who are doing well, not to those people who are struggling a little bit, but whoever is struggling the most, that this is his main concern. And this is what separates him from everybody else. And we said that we learned this from Hashem himself, that where does the mitzvah of Birkur Cholim come from? That we see Hashem went to go visit Abraham when he was not feeling well, when he was sick. And we know that he had a tremendous revelation, Gilui, of Hashem at that time, after the Brit Milah. So we see here that the greatest revelation is to those people who are sick. So now he says that this is, let's look at it by way of analogy. Let's look at mashal. When a person's healthy, for sure, the king is not going to come to that person to see his face. Only kol mi sherotzeh lekabel pnei hamelech. Only those people who are healthy, he's not going to them. Rather, whoever wants to, they are going to come to the king. They're going to bask in his radiance, of his panim. However, that person who wants to go visit the king, he can't just go in even though he's healthy. He must be very clean. He must be very pure. He must have elevated himself to a very high level to be able to step into the room of the king. Ukashet atzmo karui. And he must have put on the proper wardrobe, the proper attire. So you see that there's a whole process of preparation for a person that he wants to go see the king when he's healthy. V'lish kod ad daltei hamelech. Then he has to position himself at the gates of the king. Uvakesh me'et ra'ei panei hamelech, and he must request that he sees the face of the king. Shekablu rashut shichnos, to obtain permission for himself to enter. V'la'asot kol hatachbulot hashayachim lazeh, and he needs to perform all types of strategies that are relevant to him in order to get in. Until he's able to merit to come to the king according to his own madrega, according to his own level. Whether this means he only gets into the courtyard of the king, or whether he gets into the actual home of the king, or whether he gets into the mamish, the chamber of the king. That the king should shine into him the light of his radiant panim. So what is this mashal so far? It's talking about the Jewish people, that when a person wants to get close to Hashem, there is a very, very, very arduous, difficult, trialing painstaking process of elevating yourself from whatever place you began to, in order to attain higher levels of consciousness, in order to be able to achieve higher levels of purity, spiritually, sexually, in order to be able to achieve greater elevation in terms of your midot, your character traits, X, Y, and Z. And the more that you grow in all of these areas, the more you get to see the face of Hashem. That is, according to the effort, is the schar. According to the effort is the reward, like our sages teaches. However, however, when one of the king's entourage, the Anshe HaMelech, they fall sick. Mutal al eres davai. He falls ill and he's now confined to his sickbed. He's too sick to get up, but he is one of the closest members of the king's entourage. Rahman al-Itzlan, that Hashem should save us from this. Azai, then, then the king's rachamim, his empathy, his compassion is aroused for his friend. And he desires himself to go enliven him with the light of his own face, that he goes to visit him. Then for sure is forced the king to go etzlo near him, leveto, to his own house, and to illuminate his friend with his own presence, and to give him life force and to rejuvenate him. And this is the secret of Chazal teaching us in the Gemara that the Shekhinah rests above the sick person. Meaning that if you're not sick, you need to find him. Like the Baal Shem Tov teaches that this entire world is a game of hide and go seek. Now a person may not realize it. They don't even know that they're in the game. And therefore Hashem is hiding. But once they, so to speak, the Baal Shem Tov have experienced what the world has to offer, and they see that it's sufficiently lacking, that at the end of the day, no matter what I achieve physically, there's always a hole at the end. There's an emptiness that's felt. And then you say, where's my dad? And you start to look for something deeper. And then you seek. But for you to seek, you're going to have to elevate yourself to a much higher place than when you originally start. However, if you are one of Hashem's children, you're not seeking. You're not elevating, but you're sick. Then all of a sudden, things change. It's not a game of hide and go seek. Automatically, the compassion of your Abba is aroused when he sees that his own children, his entourage, is not feeling well. Then he comes to you. And he says, this is the whole entire ikar, this is the whole entire essence of these two final chagim that have been instituted before the coming of Mashiach. That is Chanukah and Purim. That we just did Chanukah and we're moving into Purim. That's these last two chagim of the year. Shem Moadim Kedoshim Shenitanu Lano Chayatenu Kayom Hazeh. That they are very, very holy, very elevated chagim, holidays. Shitanu Lano Chayatenu Kayom Hazeh. And they were given to us only in order to rejuvenate and to illuminate us with life force in these final days of the exile, Bimei Galut Hamar, in this very bitter exile that has never been more bitter than it is now. Shekeneset Yisrael Nikret Chole, that all of Klal Yisrael is called sick. Kamo shekatuv b'Zohar HaKadosh, like the Zohar said 2,000 years ago on the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, where it says there, Samchuni Bashishot, sustain me with dainty cakes. Rabduni b'tapuchim, drape me in the fragrance of apples. Ki cholat ahava ani, because I am lovesick. Meaning that the sickness is not what it looks like. It's not simply that we're sick because we don't know Hashem. It's not simply that we're sick because we're struggling or because we're actually physically sick. We're sick because we're all searching for something so deeply, like Rabbi Nachman teaches in The Lost Princess. Every man, every woman is on this journey looking for this lost princess. looking for the spirit of godliness in their life, whether they know it or not. And every mountain and every river and every ocean and every valley which they are climbing, which they are running through, which they are trying to break through, all of this in the end is for one reason. It's to find the lost princess, the Shekhinah, the revelation of godliness in their own life. And this is called being lovesick. And there's many women, for instance, that they're looking for a man to provide them with a certain presence that's going to make them feel whole. When the real truth is, they're looking for Hashem. And every guy as well is looking for some woman who can make them feel whole. And they end up finding that they're disappointed, not because there's anything wrong with women, and not because they didn't find the wrong one, not because they found the right one or the wrong one, because they're looking for the Shekhinah, they're looking for Hashem. And therefore we're all lovesick. That's why it says in the times of Mashiach, when the shofar blasts, the pasuk says that the Jewish people were just going to be running to Hashem, running, because we've been lovesick for so long. And even though we've allocated that feeling, that emptiness towards places that can't fill it, and even though that's so painful, we don't realize that in and of itself is actually creating the keli, that in and of itself is creating the vessel, so that when the light of Mashiach is drawn down to the world, we will have a vessel that's big enough to hold it. Because if you have a little tiny shot glass, and all of a sudden somebody pours down for you a whole entire bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey into your little shot glass, so it can't hold it, lahavdil. Or let's say, for instance, I pour you soup. It is the most delicious chicken soup you ever had in your life, but it's boiling hot. And you give me a little tiny glass. What's going to happen? The glass is going to shatter. So what is Hashem doing in this galut? What is he doing in this exile? He's really creating a tremendous yearning. A tremendous yearning. And Rabbi Nachman says that there's no way to get anything in your life until your yearning for that thing is commensurate with the thing you want. That your desire for the thing itself is as fantastic as the thing in which you are yearning for. For example, if I want to go to the store, get a snack, okay, I'm hungry. How much yearning do I need to do that? To get a snack is not such a big deal. To pay a few bucks for a snack, to be able to satiate myself so I go back to work, do whatever I need to do. So that's not a great thing. So how much yearning do I need for that? Only a little bit. What if, for instance, though, I'm looking for deep spiritual truth, which is going to infuse me and make me feel wholeness. It's going to make me feel loved. It's going to make me feel peace. It's going to make me feel energized and strengthened. It's going to give me life force. It's going to make me feel connected, to be one with the world, with the universe, with Hashem. So that is not a small treat at the supermarket. That is a very, very big thing. That is the greatest thing. So how much do you need to want that in order to have that? You need to want it as great as the thing is. And that thing is infinite. So how much yearning do we need? We need infinite yearning. What is happening in this long exile that we are all every day yearning for something so deeply and being disappointed every day in different ways? And we don't realize that what's happening is Hashem is building our keli. He's building our vessel to receive something so great through the yearning itself. And this is the paradox, that if we need the Mashiach, and the Mashiach is the greatest light that ever was, we're going to need the greatest vessel. And this is what the Holocaust, chas v'shalom, has done to us. This is what the pogroms have done to us. This is what the Inquisitions have done to us. All of these thousands of years of asking for something and not getting it is creating the vessel that we need to receive the light of Mashiach. And only then is it going to be good and beneficial and joyful for us to the same extent that we want it. There's a story I heard from my Rabbi Rav Mansour. He was speaking about the Klausenberger Rebbe and how they had just, the Holocaust had just ended and he survived. And he moved to Israel. If you can imagine, your whole life is bound up with spirituality. You've heard about Israel your whole life, but you never actually saw it. You read about it every single day. To be in the land of Israel, to be home. And after the worst travesty in modern age for the Jewish people, that's unfathomable. Not even one day is fathomable. and you're there for 5 years. That every day is literally a hell, a horror that you can't possibly imagine. And what happens at the end of it? It flips, and they're all literally sitting in the land that we've been yearning for to get for 2,000 years. And he gets to the land, and he gets to the Kotel, and he sees that the Beit HaMikdash is not there. And he sees that there is a space, there is a gap between the wall itself of the Kotel, which is really just the most external wall of the Beit HaMikdash, which protected it. It's not the Beit HaMikdash itself. And he sees that the building that used to be there, which was the revelation of light and love and peace and joy, unity in the world, there's another building there. And it's not promoting those things. And he said he started arguing with Hashem. Hashem, at least before, when I was further away, the whole thing was like a pipe dream to me. So it's not so painful. Now you literally, it's like you brought me home, and I'm standing outside the home looking at the home. He said, this is much more painful. Why are you doing this? But the real truth of the matter is, this yearning itself is the greatest thing in the world. Because when the yearning for the light is as great as the light is, Mashiach will come immediately. And owing to the immense severity of our illness, then we will be we're unable to elevate and to arise up and to see and to pray at the Beit HaMikdash for these 3 Chagim. Shehu Beit HaMikdash, because the Beit HaMikdash is gone. The Kaaba or Panim, we can't receive the light of Hashem's face. We can't go to Yerushalayim. We can't go to the chamber of the king and ask to see his face, because his chamber is not there. His courtyard's not there. His home is not there. Ki mibnei chatenu galinu me'artzenu v'nit rachaknu ve'en anu yacholim. Because of our many errors, we have been exiled from our land, and we have been distanced from our home. Ve'ein ano yacholim, and we're not able to come and ascend before you, like the pasuk says. Al ken chamal aleinu. But as a result of this, because we're sick, Hashem has tremendous compassion on us. Ba'al rachamim, that He's the Baal Rachamim. The Arizal has a tremendous chidush. You know, the Ramchal says that Hashem created the whole world just so He can give you all of His good. The Arizal says that the whole reason Hashem created the world was to reveal one quality about Himself: His compassion, His empathy, His rachamim. And you cannot experience empathy or rachamim if you're not in pain. And this is a paradox, that the greatest revelation of godliness, the light of Hashem which shines the brightest, can only shine in a place of pain. Because only with pain can you be a vessel for compassion. Nobody needs compassion when everything is going hunky-dory. Nobody needs empathy when you're not struggling. But all of a sudden we see that the Arizal teaches that Hashem only wanted to create the world so He can reveal the light of empathy. Empathy is only in a place of suffering. And this is the paradox. Vosim lanu shenei hayamim hakadoshim. And therefore Hashem added and gave Ruach HaKodesh to Chazal, to the tzaddikim, to the sages, that they should institute these 2 holidays as our final holidays for the Galut, for the exile. They are Chanukah and Purim. Shetikenu lanu tzaddikim agadolim, that these great tzaddikim instituted for us. Shehem anshe knesset agadola, that they were the anshe knesset agadola. These are, so to speak, the entourage of Hashem. Kedei lamshich lanu or panim letoch betenu, in order that we should draw for ourselves the light of Hashem's face letoch betenu, within our homes. Betokov begalutenu, in the strength, in the grips, in the teeth of the exile itself. That everyone is able to merit in his own home. He doesn't have to get up because he's not feeling well, and Hashem doesn't want him to. Hashem says, I'm going to come to you. That I'm going to come to you when you light your Hanukkah candles in your own home. That light is the light of Hashem's face itself, that we used to receive when we went to Yerushalayim, for Pesach, for Shavuot, for Sukkot, that light was so intense, it was so bright, it was so healing. And now we don't have that. And Hashem says, don't worry, I'm coming to you. Bechinat, like it says in Tilim, la'atzil panim mishamen, that he brightens the panim with oil. Shezeh bechinat hasagat elokut. And we know that in Kabbalah, especially in Chassidut, it's explained that shemen, oil, is always a code word for divine perception, transcendent God consciousness. Where do we see it in the word shemen? So one is that if you put oil in water, so you'll see that the oil rises to the top and the water sinks below. Because even though the water is connected Torah, the oil, shemen, is connected the secrets of Torah. It's connected the sphere of chokhmah, shemen. It's also in the word itself, because we know that this word is the root of the word shmoneh. We know that shmoneh is 8. And the teachings of the Maharal, they explain, the Maharal of Prague, that 6 always represents the perfection of this physical world. 7 always represents, so to speak, the completion of that world, the rest in that world, that it's reached the state of wholeness. And 8 represents transcending this world completely, entering to a state which is above consciousness. That is the letter 8. That's the number 8. That's also why when you flip the number to the side, it's an infinity sign. It's endless. Also, if you see that this is also the root for the word neshama, there's different levels of the soul. There's 5 levels of the soul, the Kabbalah teaches. The lowest is called the nefesh. That is your most felt sense connection to the physical world that's still spiritual. You have above that your ruach. This is your energy. This is your life force. This is the emotional qualities of your soul. And then you have a level above that's called your neshama. That neshama has to do with consciousness, which goes above emotions, which is in the intellect of God. That is transcendent divine perceptions of godliness. That is in the word itself. That's neshama, shemen, oil. So this whole story of Hanukkah, that it's dealing with oil and how we had one little pure thing of oil left and it lasted us for the 8 days. So this is all hinting to the concept of shemen, that is the secrets, the sod of Torah, that is the Kabbalah, that this itself is going to give us all the juice that we need. It's going to last for all of the exile until the Mashiach comes. And this is what we light with. And thus also with Purim, that everyone draws to himself a renewal of the receiving of the Torah. That is, we know that the Zohar says that Daraita Uchchinte Chad, that the Torah and the Shekhinah are one. Meaning, when it said, like the sages teach us, that it says in Masechet Megillah that we re-accepted the Torah for ourselves in Purim from love. That as opposed to Har Sinai, when, so to speak, the consciousness was so intense and it was so transcendent, it was so above anything that we knew, that we were forced to accept it, so to speak. But on Purim, we accepted it with love. We re-accepted it. And what does it mean we re-accepted the Torah? It means that we re-accepted Hashem into our life, that we had a new perception of Hashem, which was not drawn from, let's say, something that we went and elevated ourselves to, and then we were able to see it, that we were able to go to the face of the king on Har Sinai. Instead, on Purim, Hashem comes to us. And because we're sick, we don't accept it now through force. We accept it only through love. That we receive then throughout the year in the strength of the exile of the galut. That we know when is Purim. Purim's in the midst of the winter, as opposed to Shavuot, where it's beautiful outside, right? And we know that the summer is corresponding to Geula, or spring. Spring is the concept of Geula in the Torah. That the warm weather is the concept of consciousness, whereas the cold weather is the concept of constriction. It's the winter is the exile, and Purim we know is at the midst of the freezing winter. And it says there, but we confirmed and accepted the Torah. Sorry, this is Masechet Shabbat, where Chazal teach that in the days of Achashverosh, the Jewish people voluntarily reaccepted the Torah. That is, that they confirmed what they had long before accepted under duress, right? They received the Torah at Har Sinai under duress. Now they're receiving it from love. And therefore, Chanukah and Purim, they're called the legs or the feet. Okay, so what is this? So the Arizal, the most gifted, the most famous, the most wondrous of all the Kabbalists that have lived, he explains that all the different Chagim are corresponding to different parts of the body. And he says that Chanukah and Purim, they represent your two legs, your 2 feet. That Chanukah is your right foot, and Purim is your left foot, or your right leg and your left leg. Okay? And these parallel the Sfirot, says the Tikkun Zohar, of Netzach and Hod. That Netzach is the concept of Hanukkah, and Hod is the concept of Purim. Netzach is the concept of eternity, or something victorious, to overcome, to rise above. And we know that that was the energy of Hanukkah, that we had everything going against us, and we had a miracle, and we were able to persist, even though it was a little against a lot, and we were able to overcome the Greeks, okay, with that little bit of oil. This is the concept of Netzach. And also, by the way, we know that Rabbi Nachman is the gematria. Nachman is the gematria of Netzach. And you see too as well that this is one of the things, one of his essential points, is that to be able to achieve connection to Hashem, to achieve true closeness to Hashem, you must go through tremendous isurim and overcome them all through the strength of your resolve. Because this is all the concept of Hanukkah. Now, at the same time, we have Purim. Purim was more of a concept of I submit, right? I give in to what's happening. We ended up fasting and praying. We didn't go to war. We fasted and prayed. This was a concept of Hod. This was a declaration of being modeh, that we were accepting, we were acknowledging reality as it was from Hashem. And from this is Purim, this is the left foot, this is Hod. And this is the concept of the mitzvah bikur cholim, to go visit the sick, mitzvah raglin, which you have to go do with your feet. Hainu bechina, meaning Hashem yiparach meracham aleinu, that Hashem has compassion and empathy for us. V'holech levakrenu, and He goes to visit us because we're sick. Umeir lanu panim hakadoshim, and He illuminates us with His holy face. In the midst of our greatest suffering, because we're so sick like this, such that everyone can know according to his own neshama, his own soul, that He in His rachamim, He visits us. That He enlivens us, He gives us new life force, He rejuvenates us with joy and with happiness, with hope. This is all from the light of His face, which He shines to us in our domain, in our home, in our court, on these holy days that were instituted by our sages, that is Chanukah and Purim. Shem Moadim Kadoshim B'Me'achol. That these holy days, the revelation of godliness doesn't take place on days which are sanctified in and of themselves. They take place during regular Stam days. There's no laws there that you can't use technology. You can't move things into different domains. It's not the laws of Shabbat or Pesach or Shavuot, Sukkot. Instead, these are on regular days that have no inherent kedusha of themselves, just like the Jewish people are in a state that we are very far from connection to deep spiritual truth, that we have not internalized the reality of godliness in our life, that we have trouble living with it, we have trouble experiencing it. That is because we have reached the end of the exile, which is the darkest part, where Hashem is hiding within His hiding. The Rabbi Nachman says it's a concealment within a concealment. So where do we get to experience Hashem then? The answer is, it's not when we go out to him because we don't know where he is, because we're sick. He comes to us on Hanukkah and Purim on days that are not even holy in and of themselves. Sha'az ein banu koach la'alot, because we don't have the koach, we don't have the ability, we don't have the strength to elevate Leveit HaMikdash, to get to the Beit HaMikdash. L'kab b'or panim, to receive the light of his face. Rak hu yiparach mamshich lanu or panim. Only that Hashem Yiparach draws to us the light of his face within our own homes. That is, that he comes to us in our homes and he enlivens us through the light of the Shekhinah that is the true tzaddikim that are in every generation, that they are busy only with healing us. That they are striving more and more through the depths of the Galut as we are suffering more, as we are struggling more, as we are becoming more confused, more constricted, less connected to reality, that they are increasing their efforts to get to us and to help us and to elevate us and to rectify us. Anybody have any questions from this lesson? Don't be so quick to ask. You're overwhelming me. Okay, we'll do a little bit more. Maybe some questions will come up for you. So it says in the Shulchan Aruch, and the Magen Avraham speaks about this. We know that there's a custom, a minhag on Hanukkah for the poor to go around from house to house collecting tzedakah. It's called Hanukkah money. This is what they call it, or Hanukkah geld. Right? The Shulchan Aruch brings this down, that when Hanukkah comes, when Purim comes, it's a great thing to give tzedakah first. Why? This is the concept of the illumination from above. That Hashem Yiparach illuminates his face to us within our exile. So this is a big thing that Rabbi Nachman speaks about, and it's based on Kabbalah. That is, that how do we get to experience the light that comes on Hanukkah? How do we get to experience the higher perceptions of godliness that come on Purim? The answer is, it's only possible by giving tzedakah first. Because tzedakah is a mechanism which causes the light of Hashem to permeate our own homes. It's the giving of tzedakah. And through the giving of tzedakah, you're now able to receive the light of Hashem. Like the pasuk says, Ani b'tzedek echaseh v'necha. It says in Mishlei, with tzedek, meaning tzedakah, echaseh v'necha, I'm going to behold your face. Meaning, I want a revelation of Hashem in my life. Hashem is hiding from me. How do I get to experience that? When I give tzedakah, I open up a channel in which Hashem can reveal himself to me. That means that he might already be trying to, but I'm not able to see him because there is a breakage, there is a blockage. So how do I remove the blockage and I open up a space, a window in which Hashem can reveal himself to me in a powerful way? It's the giving of tzedakah. The reason in a deep way, Likutey Moharan says, is because the light of Hashem's face is revealed in the sphere that's called Bina. Bina is the highest female sphere. It's above this physical world. However, because of that, it is very, very difficult to get to that place to experience it. So there's only a few times that we're able to experience it, like on the Chagim. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. That's why we have such simcha, such joy, such feeling of connectedness to Hashem in those days, because of this light of Bina which shines then. However, on Purim and on Chanukah, right, it's not coming from Bina like the Arizal says, it's coming from lower Sfirot. So how are we able to channel that energy? So you do a Bina-like act. That is by giving tzedakah. If you'll notice, giving tzedakah goes completely above Teva. I'm working, I'm struggling to make money. I have enough, maybe enough to cover my own costs, maybe a little bit more than that. maybe not even enough. And yet the sages are saying you should still give tzedakah to them before Purim. You should still give tzedakah before Hanukkah. What's the reason? Because it is something, it's a munah in something that's above this world. When I have money that I made and I give it to a poor person who didn't on paper work for it, I'm actually tapping myself into a reality which is higher than this world. In fact, the Zohar teaches that when the Torah says that Hashem was made in our image, so the question is, what's our image? Hashem's one. So the Zohar says it's speaking about the letters of Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that every single man has this image of Hashem, meaning Yud Kei Vav Kei within us. And when are those letters associated with us, that they, so to speak, shining within us, that we have Yud Kei Vav Kei shining? It says there, when we give tzedakah. When we give tzedakah, that light shines. Now, interestingly, Rav Aryeh Kaplan explains that the letters of Hashem's names, Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, are literally in the mitzvah tzedakah itself. Why? Because let's say I want to give tzedakah to a person who's poor. He doesn't have, I have to give. So now what happens? I start with a coin. So that's the Yud of Hashem's name. We know that the Yud is just a dot. That's the coin. Then Rav Aryeh Kaplan explains, now I want to give you the coin. There's no way for me to give you a coin unless I first put it in my own hand. So this is the Hey of Hashem's name, which we know is shaped like a hand. Then it's still not enough because you're standing there and you can't get it from my hand like this. I have to go and extend my arm in order to give you the coin. So this is the shape of the letter Vav of Hashem's name. And then ultimately, you still can't get the coin. The only way to receive the coin is if you open up your own hand. And that's the final Hey of Hashem's name. So automatically, whenever you engage in the act of tzedakah, you light up all the letters of Hashem within your soul. And this taps you into something which is above consciousness. Or panim. Therefore, on these holidays that needs to ascend for the regel, for the holiday, to the Beit HaMikdash, to receive the or panim, that's why, in order to go up to see Hashem in the Beit HaMikdash, we also have to bring a reya offering. As it's written, the panim of Hashem shall not be seen empty-handed. That we should not see Hashem without giving a personal contribution. Now, what's the reason? So on paper, on the outside, it might look like some type of scheme, or it might look like some type of thing that's not L'Shem Shemayim. However, the real truth is that it's the giving of the tzedakah that allows you to go see His face. Because we in of ourselves, we're not capable of holding the light of Hashem's face. However, when we tap into that part of ourselves that is godly, by giving tzedakah, by lighting up those letters, now we're able to receive that light of His face. And by the way, Rabbi Nachman says something unbelievable. That pasuk that says, V'lo yireh et penei Hashem rekam, that you should not see the face of Hashem empty-handed. This is from Devarim. This is from the Torah itself. So Rabbi Nachman explains there that the first letters of this pasuk, the Roshei Tevot, spell out Purim. You shall not see me empty-handed, which is referring to Pesach, meaning Geula. And yet the first letters are Purim. And Rabbi Nachman explained what's the reason. Because Purim is the preparation for Pesach. Pesach represents Geula. Pesach represents redemption. But Rabbi Nachman says that there's no way to get to Geula, to redemption, except through the preparation of Purim. That is, to be able to overcome Achashverosh in our life, to be able to overcome Haman in our life, to be able to overcome Vashti in our life. These are all the different qualities about ourselves which we struggle with, which disconnect us from Hashem. And only when we're able to overcome this, which is Purim, and we know that Purim represents the deepest darkness, that it's the only thing in the Torah that doesn't have Hashem's name once, that the entire Megillah, Hashem's name doesn't come up one time. What's the reason? Because it's explained in Kabbalah that Purim represents the end of the exile, that nobody sees Hashem anywhere. And yet we see at the end of the Megillah that really everything was Hashem. The word Megillat Esther literally means, Megillah means revelation, Esther means hidden. The revelation of what's hidden. That is, the revelation of godliness, which is hidden at the end of this exile. That's why Esther's name comes from the pasuk that says, I will be concealed within a concealment. Meaning Esther's whole being, the Jew at the end of exile, is living at a time that Hashem is doubly concealed, to the extent that you don't even know he's hiding. And this is how deep the exile goes. And yet this is the final preparation for the Geula, for the Mashiach himself on Pesach, that we need to go through Purim first, that it's the Purim experience that allows us not to come empty-handed to Hashem in Pesach in Nisan. Aval baraglaim shetzarichin la'alot beveit Hashem lekabel or panim. However, on these festivals that you need to ascend to the house of Hashem to receive the light of His face, tzarichin needs la'alot lekorban. You need to bring a korban. You need to bring nidvat libo, something from your own heart, the own service of your heart. Bechina tzedakah. This is the concept of tzedakah. You need to struggle and pain yourself in order to be able to elevate to the house of Hashem with your personal contribution. However, on Hanukkah, the poor person comes to your house. You don't have to bring your personal contribution to the Beit HaMikdash. A poor person comes to your own home to ask for you for tzedakah. This was the old minhag. What was the deep Kabbalistic reason? Was because we're sick now. We're very far from Hashem. We're not able to bring our personal contribution outside. Hashem will send the poor person to you to give him. Ma'anin tivirin delay. Like it says in the Zohar, Hashem's broken vessels, they come to you. And these broken vessels, shebahem shechinat or panav, that's where manifests the Shekhinah, because we understand that the Shekhinah is only with those people who are sickest, those people who are poorest. So when Hashem wants to reveal himself to you, he needs to give you a sick or a poor person first to connect to. Why? Because Hashem is there. So you have the guy who comes over, he looks like he's collecting for his own purposes. He looks like he's collecting for some yeshiva, he's collecting because he learns for his family, he's collecting for people for food for Shabbat, right? Whatever the thing is, he doesn't have money, he's trying to marry off his children, that's what it looks like. But the real deeper reason that this person is ending up in your home on Hanukkah is because Hashem needs to send you a poor person so that you can experience the Shekhinah in your life. Because the Shekhinah is only with him. So when you give him tzedakah, you now tap into the Shekhinah that's with the poor person. Like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, Eshkon et daka, I dwell with the despondent one. Why? Because the word Shekhinah literally means dwelling. Where do I dwell? I can only dwell in an empty space. Who's holding on to empty spaces? Those people with broken vessels. This is why the pasuk says, who is going to inherit the earth? And we know that the earth is a code word for Emunah. Who's going to inherit Emunah Shlema? Who's going to be able to experience that everything is from Hashem? It says only the person who's humble, that the meek are going to inherit the earth. It's the humility that comes from the suffering that actually gives us a space for the Shekhinah to dwell with us in our life. And this is the paradox of suffering, that it is the trials and the tribulations of this world which actually make us, so to speak, poor. And that poverty itself, these broken vessels, are the dwelling place of the Shekhinah himself. That is where Hashem is revealed. Therefore, when Hashem loves someone and he desires to illuminate his face, meaning he wants to show him his own face, he will send him a poor person. Like the Zohar says, who that Hashem loves, he is going to send him a poor person as a gift. Not that you should give him a gift, that the poor person himself is the gift. Why is that? Because the Zohar explains that when Hashem sees that a person is struggling, he's suffering in his life, he wants to get close to Hashem, but he can't. Or there's some type of blockage, there's something that's in between, and only Hashem knows that. So what does he do? He sends that person who he loves, who he knows is struggling, who he wants to help bridge that gap. He will send him a poor person. I've told this story before to my students, but for the new people who haven't heard it, there was a time in my first few years of doing teshuvah, of trying to return to the root of my soul, to the root of existence, to Hashem. Like many people who become Bali Tshuva, and even more so now than ever, it's the most confusing, the most difficult, the most arduous, the most painstaking process that you can do, to leave behind a world, a mindset, a perspective which is so deeply entrenched in you, to try and climb to Yerushalayim, to Eretz Yisrael, a complete different perspective, and to do it many oftentimes without friends, without family, and even if they're there, they don't understand, so they can't support you in the way that you need. And those people who are religious, they also don't understand because they never had this. So you really, it's a very, very, very difficult and oftentimes lonely journey to find peace, to find connection, to find happiness, to find joy in your life, to find Hashem. And I remember I was working as a social worker in a mental health clinic in Brooklyn. It's called Ohel Homes. And I used to try and help people to get different services. People didn't have houses, I tried to help them get housing. Didn't have food, I tried to help them get food, X, Y, and Z. But I myself was struggling mightily, and I was in the midst of a very painful, depressive episode. And every day, I'm going to work, I'm taking a train, an hour and a half there, an hour and a half, 2 hours back. I'm getting up early in the morning, I'm getting back late, and I'm doing this every single day, and it was mamash killing me. It was taking all the life force out of me. It was so hard for me. It was hard for my wife that she didn't see me during the day or at night. And this was the only way for me to, use the license that I went to school for. And I remember like I constantly mentioned, that the thing that was giving me life force, the thing that was giving me hope was Likutey Halachot, was Rabbi Nachman's lessons, his Torah, his wisdom. So on the train there, on the train back, all I did, I would read Likutey Halachot there and back. And when I had a break, when I was there, just read it back and forth, back and forth. And it was the only thing that was keeping me going. And obviously, if you take the train or the transit in New York, there's a lot of poor people. And I didn't have much, but I used to give whatever I had. I remember I came off the train, and I was like, really just like, I can't do this anymore. Hashem, like I need you to show me something, and that you're there, that I'm doing what you want me to do, that I'm moving closer to something good in my life, to the truth. And I got off the train, and I saw a homeless person by the CVS. So he came up to me, he darted for me, even though there's many other people, and I for sure didn't look like the wealthiest person coming off that train. And yet he came right over to me. And this was before I read this. I didn't know at this point that Hashem sends you a poor person when he sees that you're struggling, and he wants to bring you a revelation to show you that he loves you and that he's proud of you and that you're doing good. So he came up to me and he said, hey, can you give me some money? I haven't eaten, I'm starving. I'm just gonna buy something from CVS over here. So I told him, yeah, for sure. I went into my pocket, I had a few dollars, whatever I had, I gave him. So he said, the truth is that in CVS, they have this sandwich that I love, a sandwich combo with like a drink or something. He said, do you mind getting it for me? And I said, sure. So for that, I needed to use my debit card. So I went inside the CVS with him, and it was very late at night, coming back from work. And, I used to get back like at 10 o'clock at night. So I brought him into the CVS. I got him whatever the sandwich he wanted. Then he said, can you get me a drink also? So I said, sure. So I got him whatever. And I saw him, and obviously I work in this place where we help to get people like him housing. And I told him, listen, that there's housing. If you don't have money, you don't have means to be able to support yourself right now. There are places that you can stay, that you can sleep, that you don't have to sleep outside in the freezing cold, X, Y, and Z. He said to me, have you ever been in any of those places? I said, no. I just, this is my job. I help people to get in there. He said, right. He said, you should know I've been in those places and I'd much rather sleep outside. And I had tremendous empathy and compassion. It's like unbelievable. He was saying like, you know, how most of these places are not clean and they're infested and like, oh my God, it's like horrible things. So I told him I understand. Then he started to speak to me about politics and whatever. I ended up having like a 20-minute conversation with him. He was unusually educated for a person who on paper didn't look like he probably had that type of education. And then he took me outside and he asked me my name. So I told him my name's David. So he said, like the king of Israel. I said, what? He said, yeah, like David Melech Israel, the king of Israel. And he wasn't Jewish. I said, yeah, I mean, he was the king like a few thousand years ago. That's true. So he said, no, he was the king and he's still the king. And he left. It was very bizarre. But I felt Hashem speaking to me and giving me a hug and a kiss, telling me that it's going to get better. And that all came from the tzedakah, meaning Hashem wants to show himself to you, but it's the tzedakah itself that opens it up. And that's why on Hanukkah, and therefore on Hanukkah, he comes to our house to illuminate us with his face. Therefore, out of Hashem's love for us, he sends us poor people to our homes. In order that we should be merited through them. That we should be illuminated with the light of Hashem's face into our own home. Okay. Any questions now?
Rav.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't really have a question. I just really enjoyed your lesson.
Oh, okay, great. I'm glad.
Very inspiring. You fired me up.
Thank God.
I needed to hear this because a poor person approached me like 10 minutes before this lesson, and I was like, sorry. I was like, yeah, but now you gave me tremendous chizuk.
Thank God. Baruch Hashem. It was worth
God bless you.
You too. You too.
Love the lesson.
Thank
Amazing.
God. Any other statements, comments? We have 2 minutes. Give me whatever you got. This is the last lesson of the week for Likutey Halachot. Okay.
Hi, Rabbi.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
Hi. Good here. I'll do my video. It's my first time joining your Zoom, and I just want to say it is what the other person said is true. Your classes are so inspiring, and I just wanted to thank you. I really enjoy them.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You should be blessed. Okay, guys, so listen. We're going to do another impromptu class tonight, Likutey Moran, at 9 p.m. at Od Yosef Chai. Anybody who's in the Queens, New York metropolitan area, you should come there. It's a great way to go into Shabbat. We're going to do a very amazing story, which is going to link and integrate all the concept that we learned so far about how to be happy in this 5th tour of Likutey Moran. For anybody who hasn't seen the class, I highly suggest you come. It's for only men, but you can watch online. If you're a woman for this class, you can watch online on Zoom at 9 p.m. The link will go out. You for sure should watch it. It should be very, very beautiful, Bezrat Hashem. And if you're in the class as well, you should come and bring your friends. And Bezrat Hashem, we should go into Shabbat with simcha, with joy, with hope, for the Mashiach, for the Beit HaMikdash, for the Geula, that it should be Bimara V'Yaminu, mamash soon in our days, that we should see the light of Hashem's face, that He should come to us and give us a hug and a kiss and tell us that this whole thing is over, Bezrat Hashem.
Amen.